Today you can spin up a SaaS prototype in minutes using tools such as Lovable or Cursor. But that doesn't mean you should. Even if AI writes the code for you, this generated code can easily turn into big errors later on if you're not careful. And you can easily spend up a lot of time digging around fixing code instead of just proving the idea. And that's why in many cases I recommend starting one layer above Airtable Interfaces. Because with Airtable Interfaces, you and perhaps other clients you're testing something with can get a real product feel. But you also get the flexibility to tweak and iterate on any features without breaking anything. And that's why in this video I want to show you why Airtable Interfaces plus N8N, for most cases, might be a smarter first move for you rather than moving directly into Cursor or Lovable, and when would be a good time to move into creating an MVP, for example, in these tools. So let's get started right away. All right, so here you have a quick comparison by adding Airtable on the left and Cursor and Lovable on the right. I left a couple of notes over here. And so the main point is that Airtable is a CRM. So you can really step into the data as much as you like, and you can tweak it really easily, right? You can change the column names really easily. You can change the rows, you can add rows, delete rows, right? It's really flexible when it comes to testing. And obviously then on top of that, you can connect these bases, which is how it's called here, or tables if you want, onto interfaces, which you'll see soon, right? And it gives you like really good flexibility. So you can choose this mainly when you have already something working on N8N, right? You want to prove something on N8N, but then you want to just display data in an easy manner on top without having to go into Supabase and having to display something on Lovable, okay? Because you've seen a lot of tutorials out there, which I think this is what I'm mainly talking about here, where they connect Lovable and then N8N in the background. This can just get a bit tedious, okay? So the process of connecting Lovable to N8N and then connecting it to Supabase, first of all, it can get a bit fragile, and second of all, it can take ages to do. So if you're just building a quick dashboard, or the main value of the product is within the automation itself, just displaying some values on top, why not choose Airtable Interface? Yeah, I've seen a lot of products, especially in Lovable and N8N, they use both together, and the only thing that they build on Lovable is a one pager or a two pager with a few pie charts and bar charts. If you're gonna do that and spend so much time into that, because I know how much time there is to connect Lovable to Supabase, get all the tables right, and also connect it properly to N8N, right? Because you have a chat interface on Lovable might build, the wrong features, and there's a lot of back and forth. Why, instead of doing all of that, why don't you just move all of that into a CRM where you can quickly change anything if needed? There's no chat interfaces involved, so there's no back and forth. You can just click and do stuff quickly. Then connect that onto N8N, which is very easy. I'll show you how to do that on Airtable, and just build an interface quickly as well. I'll show you how to do that on a drag and drop editor on Airtable. So once again, if you're going to build a one pager, two pager app where the only thing you display is data, most of the value is in the N8N or the automation, you just want to prove a concept like that, then if you're doing Lovable plus N8N, you might be spending a lot more time than you should. Might as well just do it on Airtable, right? Because everything is there. You got the CRM, you got the interfaces, and then you can easily connect to N8N. And this might be also an easier step if you have no clue on how software works, you have no clue about coding. This might be a good first step, and I'll show you how this resembles a piece of software. So we have the CRM, okay, where we're storing all the data, similar to how Supabase works, but it's all in Airtable. This is a CRM. This can interact, as I said, as a database, part of the backend. And below that, you essentially are sending webhooks onto N8N. So all of this can be considered the backend, okay? So the data and also all the logic. When you add something, then that can trigger an N8N workflow, and then that produces an output. Simple input-output. And then if you want to display any of the data so that it's not messy looking table, you can really easily then connect it onto a dynamic interface. So as I said, if it's mainly pie chart, for example, 37%, and then 63%, for example, or some bar charts, okay? So this is essentially the front end. So you could build entire software, if you see like this, inside Airtable. You can prove a concept really quickly, have clients access it, because you can also share these bases, and that's it. If it's mainly, as I said, an input-output tool or prototype that you are looking into. So what I mean by that is that you get an input, and it then processes it. This is in the front end. You could call it the Airtable interface, and then you get an output in the form of a nice dashboard. So all this can be handled inside. Sorry for that. That looks, I don't know what, that doesn't look understandable. But yeah, everything can be handled inside N8N, okay? I think that sums it up. But with Cursor and Lovable, you will want to step into this when you have multi-page apps, okay? When the UI UX matters, not just one simple interface, right? When you're building more complex applications, when you're including more UI frameworks that simple bar charts and pie charts and, simple data outputs that can be seen, visually can't cover. Maybe you have some complex animations, when you're building desktop or mobile apps, okay? If the product has to live outside the browser or Airtable. So again, complex interactions. You have like a drag and drop editor similar to what you have on an A10. You can't replicate that on Airtable. And real-time collaboration, stuff like that. You're making a video editor, of course. And yeah, well, this is not that important. But to summarize, Airtable is when you want dashboards and simple data being output, and when you care more about what happens in the backend, okay? But if you have a complex UI UX or it's just very heavy on this, right? You would just want to prove that the UI UX is nice, or you have advanced features, then you will go straight to this for creating a prototype or an MVP. So that's pretty much a summary. I try to keep it as lean as possible. But yeah, now I'll show you Airtable. This is the Airtable interface, and this is what your end user or your client would be given. So instead of giving them a dirty looking Google Sheet with thousands of rows where, they're given very specific instructions, add a sheet or add a row here, and then this would trigger the automation, doing it in a very scrappy way. We're abstracting all of that and giving them this very neat looking interface, okay? So we want to make the friction between your client or your user and the system or product as less as possible. Okay, we want to reduce that friction. And Airtable, I think, is doing a really good job at this. So the first thing you'll notice is the beautiful image of a mug holding a mug, okay? Very important fact. But the second one is that, well, this is an overview page. So we have multiple pages over here. But this is great because the client would arrive here and they would see these areas, you could call them, okay? So what I'm building, well, this is mainly for me, but I know that a lot of people need this, which is a YouTube intelligence system. So it's going to be able to do the YouTube strategy and analytics for us. So it's going to search keywords based on search terms, the top performing videos. We're going to be able to extract that data from the top performing videos, added some custom metrics to understand the virality of those videos, so that I can just grab titles and perhaps use them for my own videos, right? Repurpose them to be able to get viral videos for myself. And well, I'm also doing some comment analytics and combining the data that I get from the top performing videos and the comments from my own channel, bundle them together in order to get great ideas for my next videos, okay? Based on top performing videos and audience requests. So this is very specific, but you can imagine these being given as part of a service that I would provide to, content creators that are just getting started and they want some sort of consulting, right? This would be the automated way to provide that, okay? I could just give them this and this could be a service that I can provide, right? So the first step with this is, if I click here, it's gonna take me to the first page. So I need to enter some terms. So I want to look for top performing videos in the N8N niche, in AI coding, and in SaaS, let's say. So once I hit create, I'm just gonna trigger this, okay? It's triggering this workflow essentially. So we have 3 different sections in this workflow. We're not using the top one, but this is the one in charge of searching for the weekly data on the top performing videos, right? We're doing some filtering here, doing some stuff with this AI agent. We're also getting the comment analysis, and then we're using both to generate ideas for my next videos based on this, but also based on the comment analysis from my own channel, what users find good about the video, what users find bad about my videos, okay? So if I hit execute workflow, it's just gonna wait for a trigger, okay? It's gonna wait for an event. And that event is actually the creation of a row. So this is essentially connected to the CRM over here. So once I fill this in here, okay, in this form, it's gonna show up here. And I have an automation. It's gonna watch for any new row created, and that's going to trigger this webhook. So it's really nice because I have full control, full visibility of what's being added, what's not. And I can really delete this, add columns, right? It's very, very quick edits that I can make. So this is why I like this for most use cases. So let's go back onto the preview mode so I can actually press enter. So make sure this is running, and I'm gonna hit create, and this is gonna trigger this webhook over here, right? So there you go, it arrives, and we'll see that we get over here the keywords, right? N8N, AI coding, and SaaS. So I'll show you how we can run that. It's by running a script. Once this is done, I'll come back and I'll show you the results. So the results are going to appear on these other pages or areas. Okay, so this is done. We finished the whole workflow over here. And now what we can do is if we go into the comment analysis, we'll first see some positive insights. Let's go on to the new date. Okay, this can all be configured, and don't worry about the weird date formats. This can be fixed, but essentially we see the positive insights, negative insights, and requests. Okay, this is about my channel specifically. And we can see, well, what people liked, what didn't, requests. Okay, this is all based from scraping the comments of my latest videos. We can also see based on the search terms. So based on the search terms that we added at the start in the form, we can see all the videos that are performing well. And this is obviously much better than looking at a CRM, such as this one, right? Imagine giving this to a non-technical client. It wouldn't be good, and they'll probably want some of the money back for the service that you provided, okay? So by having it like this, a place for the non-technical user to be more comfortable with when it comes to analyzing or doing any service for them. We can see here, for example, the Replit 3 video, and we can see that it has an average outlier score of 9. This is a custom metric that I've calculated myself. You get the idea. You can see all the videos here. Maybe you want to see it in table format. Well, you have the following. Okay, you can look at any of the videos here. Click, so you can click. You have the views, you have the outlier score, the velocity, which is a good indicator of virality. How many days ago was this posted as well? And you can go open it and you can just have a look at, you have more data such as the thumbnail. You can open this, right? You can go back, you can go on the actual video. Yep, so pretty useful. And then we'll get into the ideas generator. One thing that I didn't show you though, was that if you want to allow the person to, well, the client, the end user, to add any data, you can do so as well. So you can actually add text, okay? Over here. So it's pretty useful if you also want to use it. Okay, let's actually switch on to the 23rd. So this is the latest one. But yeah, you can also step in and allow the client to change any of the records if they want, okay? So once I make the changes as you see over here, they're going to be reflected. If we go back to data, back on the comment analysis, let's have a look here, all right? So you can see that we added some gibberish and it's on the positive insights. If I go back, I added that on the positive insights, okay? So the changes are directly reflected back onto the database or your CRM. Really, really easy to use. Now, if I go onto the ideas generator, we can do the same. So this is what I was saying before that. You're building a Lovable app, okay? And you have to connect to Zubabase and you have to maybe build some edge functions or connect to N810, right? It all happens on the chat interface that Lovable has, and it can take you much longer than just setting it like this here. And yeah, you get this really neat visual and you can get other stuff as well. I'll show you how to build on the interface editor in a second. It's going to show you the last one, but you get the idea. Then let's say if you don't like the title, you can delete it. And I want to build instead an agent on line graph. So line chain plus observability or whatever, observability, line graph and so on. Okay, and that's it. And then the changes get reflected as well. And now I'm going to show you how we can add some other stuff in the interface. So if I remove myself from the preview, you can first of all create an entirely new interface. So I'm just going to put interface 2, and we can choose between all these different layouts. It's pretty neat. So you might have images in your records, right, or your tables here in the raw data, back in the raw data. Let's say that for the idea generator, you saw some thumbnail ideas, right? You can pass it then onto an AI agent to generate images for you, and you can add the images here. So just come back to this if you want to do that. So that was a sample, but you could have added an image here, the idea generator. You could put it like that, for example, and you can ask the AI to generate images for you, and you can see the whole thing. Allow it to open the details. We can also add an image. It's an easier way to just showcase your data, okay, versus a Google Sheet. Okay, let's add another interface. So we can choose between many other ones. You can add it as a record, as an overview, which is the first one that you saw, right? So the one with the pages and the areas. As a dashboard, you see, you can even open it on the phone. So this is essentially ideal for a client dashboard, right? And you don't have to build it on Lovable. So pretty neat. So let's say, okay, this doesn't make any sense, but I'm just gonna use, actually, if we use the 3D outliers, I get some data, that might be handy. So, which I've done before. You can use a pie chart as well. Let's go for, the categories would be, this case, the channel. You see how we can just visualize it like this. What we're seeing here, this should be the total number of views. So it would be average views per channel. So this represents how much of a share all of these YouTubers are taking from the search terms that we added, right? For N8N, AI coding, and SaaS. So we see that this is probably for N8N. Nate Herrick is taking most of it. Shout out to Nate. We got Liam Otley, David Andre, shout out to them as well. And N8N, of course, is there. But yeah, so based on the search terms that we added at the start, these are the channels that are taking the most view share. And we can just see the data displayed in different formats. So you should be able to visualize already how this could replace simple software prototypes that can be built on Lovable, right? And it's much more reliable because you can just drag it, you'll see it now, and so on. So this is the form, okay? This is what I used at the start to add any records onto the database, okay? If you want to allow the client to enter data in the CRM without then having to see this, okay? So to completely separate them from this, and instead show them a neater, nicer, just simple way of doing it, of adding stuff onto the CRM, then you can just add this form page. Okay, so for search terms, let's say we want to allow the YouTuber or something to add new ideas. We can also select what to add, what not to add, so what to allow the person to add or not. Let's say we don't want them to touch the thumbnails, so we're gonna delete that, okay, and this image thing. There you go. And enter your idea. You see how easy it is. We can add a description. Please enter the 3 ideas that you will like to see for your next videos, okay? Finish that. Let's look at the preview. Then we could say, okay, we've created this on the 24th September, 2025. Title, well, we could have put them in order, but you get the idea. Title 1, Title 3, Title 2. Hit create, there you go. That should appear now over here, okay? Title 1, Title 2, and Title 3. We put it so that we had no choice to add the thumbnails, okay? Thumbnail descriptions. So pretty neat. So once you created the pages that you want, you can have a couple of settings over here, right? You can change a couple things. First of all, you can choose if you want certain pages to be visible or not. And what you can do as well is to allow the user, to have control on certain things. So let's come back over here, right? On this ideas generator. If you don't want the person to change any of the existing records, what you can do is just change the permissions on the right side. So you can just set it to view only, and you can set this per element that you see. Really cool. Then you can do other stuff with appearance. You can set it as large, so you can set titles, okay? So you can really test this out. You can really customize it. And over here we have full control as well, whether you want it as a line graph, as a pie chart, as a donut chart. You get scatter as well. We can allow users to print the chart. We can add filters as well, so we can further filter the data if we really need to. And we can change the y-axis, x-axis. So this is great as well. We can manipulate the data in a very specific way. So this gives us pretty much all the control that we need to allow the user or the client to see exactly what they want. So let's see if I'm missing anything. Just gonna add, so you can add custom interface extensions even. This might be a bit too advanced. You can add timelines, calendars, Kanban boards. So the list gets pretty extensive. And you can even just add stuff in blank. So I'm just going to show you how that looks like. So we usually start is with the record picker. And once you add it over here, you can just choose the source for the data that you see in this page. So let's say we want to grab 3D outlier data. We can choose per record as well, but we don't really need to. Or we can go ahead and choose the ideas generator. We can filter this per date, okay? So now let's say we want to grab title idea 1. Just drop it over here. Thumbnail 1. We can drop it on the right side. Title idea 2, we can do the same. Thumbnail 2, right? So this is all based on this row, the row indicating the 24th of the 9th. You can go back to other dates and the data is just gonna get updated accordingly, okay? So the only thing that we're doing here, there's no magic. The only thing that we're doing is just matching the rows in the backend over here, okay? That's all we're doing. So if we come over here, we could perhaps delete all these, right? It's a form, but let's add, okay, maybe clear the form. Okay, it's a form, so we'll probably go ahead and add something else. So let's start with blank canvas. And let's say there's a button as well, which is really helpful. We can trigger this button to, instead of adding the keywords in the form, we can just set the same keywords all the time, right? The search terms to do the YouTube report. And instead hit a button, because this button can then be attached onto an automation, which can then send a webhook to start our N8N workflow. Okay, so the main rule is that you could select the record picker, select the data source, and based on that, now what we can do is add relevant data to that. So if you click all elements, we can go ahead and add a grid, for example. So this is the 3D outliers. Let's change and add a chart. So, actually, we had it well before. All we have to do is just switch between this to 3D outliers. So we don't technically need this, actually. We can just display that. Don't need a data source. So just use calendar. Obviously, we don't have any dates, but you sort of get the idea, okay? I didn't want this video to be too deep. You can always learn how to use this. There's plenty of tutorials out there. Just wanted to give you an overview and show you the important things with the automations as well. So let's grab a chart for you to see. And on the right, you can, once again, select the source, 3D outliers. Okay, this data might not be the best to showcase you. Not a lot of visuals that we can do with this. Now let's come back to the other interface. So there's two interfaces here, each have multiple pages. So to have this form actually trigger my automation, an intent automation, we have to do a couple things, which is probably the most important thing, well, the main thing to be able to connect to an intent, obviously. So once I fill this, I'm triggering an automation. How does that work? We can do it in two ways. We can trigger an automation using a button, okay, which is an element in the interface editor, which I showed you before, which I just briefly mentioned before. But another way is by just going directly to automations. And you see that I created one here. You can go ahead and create a new one, create automation, and you can add a trigger. So triggers happen internally in Airtable, and we can run them when a record has been updated. When a record has been created, which is the one that I selected, we need to select a table. So we selected the action or the trigger type. Now we're gonna say, okay, well, we're gonna add, if we add some search terms, we can also test the step with any of the search terms. So we can actually test it with existing data, okay? And then we can pass the data later on down the line with the automation. So for the one that I'm doing, there's another way, which I think you can do without having to pay, but I think you have to pay for this plan, okay? I'm not sponsored by Airtable, by the way. I just think they're a really good software tool to use, and I use it personally for some things, and I've used it before for my clients as well. But yeah, you can run a script, and this is where you can get pretty funky with it. So this is the one that I'm using. Over here, it's a bit different. Well, actually, I told you before that you can do it in two ways. You can do it when a form is submitted. When a form is submitted, that data is anyways going to a row, okay, or a record. So you could use both. And it's a search terms table, and I need to choose the form as well. So this is actually linked to the button. So I know this is a section only for forms, okay, but you can add a form inside the interfaces section over here. So this is the form, essentially. And when I hit create, this automation is going to pick that. And then we are going to run the script. So what does the script look like? Go over here. You need to define some variables. Okay, let's edit the code, and we're going to see everything move to the left side. So this code is pretty simple. This is an error catch. We're just logging if there's no terms, then you need to check your field mappings. We add an error message. So let me try to zoom in a bit. So this is syntax from Airtable. Basically, we are letting Airtable know that we've added some inputs. These let you use values from previous automation to use in your script with input.config. So we're defining some variables previously, before running this. So the webhook is my actual webhook address, the destination, okay, and it's this one. So we're grabbing that information, okay, in test URL. When you're done with it, make sure to set it in production URL. But yeah, so that's the one, and then we're naming another variable inside the script called term1. We're actually just adding all of the terms. So how do you do that? Well, let's delete that. All you have to do is just add. And we are going to go on to insert value from field. Okay. So we're actually grabbing the value. So there you go. So that's the terms. And that's it. Now we're able to call them inside here by the names. So we're collecting the terms from input variables. We're trimming them. You don't really need this. But we need to define a variable, and this is just coming from config term1, which is this. And then we're just sending it to a webhook, okay? Typical standard webhook message, doing a post, okay? Same, this is nothing crazy going on here. And we are sending the term, okay? Actually, it should be, yeah, okay, we renamed it, okay? So term is equal to term1. Okay, maybe not the best, most understandable way of coding, but we're just sending these, and we're sending it to a webhook address. So the webhook address is already mentioned here. So config.webhook. So we're sending it to this webhook address. And what are we sending? We're sending term, which is defined here. Okay, very, very simple. And if we test this, we can actually test this inside here. So what we did first is Let's have a look. We chose a record, okay, in this first step. We grab the Airtable record because when a form is submitted, we're adding a record, as I said. Then on the second one, we can test the action. So we can test from here if this is working. So I'm going to break this up. I'm going to press play. Now if I test this action, yeah, we can run the two tests. And it's telling us that we can choose a sample record already that's existing in the data section. So let's grab this one and we can see if we trigger this, right? So we trigger it and then we see the record appearing here. Okay, and then we can just test it and just do the rest of the workflow. So yeah, very simple. It's just 2 steps and you see the power that it can bring. So yeah, so make sure to set this on if you want to set it to production. So every time you just set the automation to on, so that every time I fill in this form, it actually works without having to just test it manually all the time. And yeah, that's all I wanted to cover. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how capable this is, because you can add visuals, you can add charts, you can add images, you can add forms, you can allow the user, the client, to edit the records as well. So you can switch between records and allow the user or the client to edit them. And you can see the applications that this has. It's not only for YouTube analysis, obviously. You could help the client in so many ways. So give them that help through this interface rather than just spending a lot of time and going through a lot of errors to develop something that might work on Lovable. But yeah, this is mainly, as I said, to test backend, well, automation heavy flows. So yeah, that's all I wanted to cover here. Just want to add some final notes. These two are somehow related. So knowing how to stay inside N8N and using Airtable interfaces, and when to know when you're hitting some limits and it's good to move on to Lovable and a cursor. So N8N plus Airtable interfaces are great if you're testing mostly a service-based product. So service-based product mostly is, especially in consulting, we're going to achieve X output for you, right? So where you're doing content strategy for someone, you're doing SEO analysis for them, right? Whatever requires input output. You can easily do this here. You're validating the market, you're whipping out a really quick prototype with an emphasis on making sure that the N8N workflow works first and displaying some basic data, right? But once you understand the main outcome, okay, and the step-by-step on the N8N side, how APIs are called, what is happening with the data, how is it being transformed, and a clear image how you can step from just simple automation and output into, well, okay, now let's look into the UI, UX, how we can refine and add more features. That's when you move on to Lovable and our cursor, right? You could call it a V2, version 2 of the MVP or the prototype, and then you scale it from there, okay? Then that's when you can develop a proper software prototype, and then, when need be, hire developers, if you're not technical yourself, to take the project forward, okay? So this is how I see this working, okay? And as I said, you might not need to do this. You might already have a really good understanding on how this works, and you can skip this step entirely. But I'm just saying this, okay, because some people are overwhelmed or don't know how to use Lovable and a cursor to its best abilities, okay? And some people just get stuck into multiple errors or integrating with Subibase, integrating with N8N, okay, can become a hassle. So this can be best first step, especially because you've seen the Airtable, although it takes some time to get used to the UI, overall, there's just less chance of things breaking. So yeah, just wanted to make that video really quick. Didn't want to go in depth on any automation builds. If you want the automation that I've shown here, it's in the free community, okay? So you can go ahead and grab that if you want. But yeah, so I've shown you the important things, how interfaces work, okay, how you can add different interface types, you can add different pages, how you can visualize data. Okay, I've shown you a walkthrough, actually, my own system over here. We trigger the workflow together, and how it links to the backend, how automations work as well, and how to run a script for it and send it to my webhook endpoint on N8N. And yeah, how to fill in forms as well, okay, because some might want to add information and use that to trigger the workflow. And yeah, hopefully that was clear. General guide. And obviously I know that I have the Lovable and cursor video pending. I know that a couple of you want to see that. So yeah, let me know once again if you want to see that in the comments below. Happy to do that. And if you have any other suggestions, please let me know in the comments as well, okay? If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up and a follow. I would really appreciate it. And if not, let me know why as well in the comments. Any feedback is good feedback, okay? So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.